Hey, so this is Mike, and this particular project, it's going to be what I call a drop-in because I'm doing it for myself. And what it is, it's a firewood rack. And what I did is when I was looking, we were sitting up in our loft this morning or last night and looking at the box that we had. We had a box that we keep our firewood in inside the house, and it doesn't hold that much. And the problem is that the big pieces are always on top of the small ones, or the small ones are on top of the big ones because it's just a straight drop in. So I got looking on the web, and it is amazing how many different ways there are for people to keep their firewood. Look at this, a wall hanging one, blocks, the manufactured stuff, heavy duty. Oh my gosh. So it it never ends. And so what I was looking at is, okay, what kind of concept would work well for number one, the tenons on steroids. Number two, really a real life unit that we would have in our house, and then probably do another one for the front porch. Again, rather than going horizontal with our firewood, I'd like to go a little bit more vertical. So then the two that really intrigued me were this one here, and I don't do the box kind of thing here. I would change this over to post, but what intrigued me was the diagonal, and actually how functional that looks. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it just seems like it's functional. And there was another one here. I'm going to try to find it in a second. All right, here it is. Now this one is it looks like it's metal or it has a metal front to it, or it could be wood. I'm not sure. The image isn't that good. But if you notice, what they did is they have the diagonals, but then they put different size firewood. Like this is medium size. This is the small stuff. And then you've got the variations in here. And that's just pretty much our lifestyle. We have a small Vermont castings, are the very small one, a wood stove. It's on the second story, so we have to haul a lot of wood up there. But so we don't take a lot of big wood. But the problem, again, we can solve the problem here with the fact that we would have some of the larger stuff, which I call the all-nighters. They're the thicker, larger pieces that I split that I put in there right before we go to bed at night. Then during the middle of the night, if it's dying down or in the morning, I want to kick it up. I want to throw a couple of these guys in there. During the day, if it's not too cold outside and we want to just keep a fire going, we're going to throw some stuff like this and smaller stuff, just one at a time. So what I came up with is this design, and so it has this mixture of wood, steel. It's got the diagonal. I have no idea if this is going to work. I'm just going to give it a shot. I'm going to make one. And what's interesting, or a couple of things that are going to be unique here, is this is, again, this is going to be steel, but it could be coated with wood. It could be a laminate as well, very much like these here, where there would just be an added piece on one side, both sides, or could be on the top. It could be all of them. Could all fit in there. So it's all wood and there's no steel. In fact, this doesn't even have to be steel. This could be wood, but I'm kind of going for a little bit of the industrial look. This here, I am going to attempt, this is going to be flat stock, like probably a quarter by three flat, and I'm going to try to make a hinge here. And the reason I want to do that is that then come summer when we don't need these things, that we're going to be able to take this apart to a certain extent. Like this piece would come off, this piece would come off. I'm going to make these permanent. I'm going to glue these up, when I assemble them. So then we would just, but all we have to do is grab that piece, these pieces, haul them off into and store them in a corner somewhere in the crawl space or the garage or something like that. And then this piece here, I'm not going to be able to do that on SketchUp right now. I could if I tried, but I don't want to put you through that. But this piece would actually fold up just like an ironing board. If you look at that, it's very much like an ironing board where it's got the hinge right in here. So I'm going to Control Z those back into position. A couple other things I was looking for was that we have a place to hang our firewood, to our fire tools. We have a couple of, like we have a shovel, a brush, and we could just then right on here, I could go ahead and weld or fasten somehow some hooks. Now, for those of you that don't do metal work, and I never used to do metal work at all, there's actually not a lot going on here. It looks like it, but it's really not. And for instance, we have a place in Green Bay, Wisconsin, that if you said, hey, I need one, two, three, four, I need 8 pieces of 1/4 by 3 flat stock at X long, they would cut those up for you, and they're really not very expensive. The other parts that'll be needed would be a couple of pieces right in here. Because this is basically how it's going to bolt in. I haven't shown that here, but it's going to just be a single bolt from here into the steel, or from the steel into that. Haven't decided that completely. I'll do that a little bit maybe on the fly. And then this hinge thing is the only complicated part. You can actually buy hinges that would probably work on there. Otherwise, at some point you might, if you have a welder nearby, that if you give them all the parts and say, this is what I'm looking for, here's the drawings, here's all the materials, so they don't have to cut that stuff up, especially if they're like a part-time kind of shop. I know we have a place up here, it would probably cost $15 to $20 to have that welded. Again, we'd buy the material, but again, I do my own welding, and these hinges are actually pretty easy to do, believe it or not. It's made up of a 1-inch steel that has a certain wall on it that it comes out, that on the inside it would be 3/4 for a 3/4 inch bolt or pin, or there's different sizes you could use. So anyways, this is what I want to build. I have enough confidence, in fact, I'll cover that in a second. But again, this is the project. I'm teaching a workshop at a place up here called The Clearing in Door County, and we're kind of scrambling for, okay, who wants to, what kind of projects do you want? It's amazing. A lot of people don't really have an idea what they want to do for a project. They say, I'm kind of out of things. I don't need anything anymore. So I want to do the woodworking, but I'm not sure what it is I want to make. So this is going to be my project, and then anybody else that wants to tap into making their own or a version of it, that would be ideal. It incorporates a lot of the stuff that we want to teach and learn in this course, which is the tenons on steroids, and using the 2 different formats, this is the triple lam right here. So we're going to show them how to do that, where it's going to be and protruding out, but somebody may say, I don't like the protrusion, I want it to be tucked inside. So we'd say, okay, fine. If you don't want that sticking out on the end, we can tuck it inside and then cover up that hole. So, or they might want to put a steel tenon here, sticking out, which is actually really a good way to do it. The other thing that we're going to do is use this method, which is where we use a steel tenon, either a steel tenon or all steel, or a portion of steel. And I don't show it here yet, but there will be a particular type of way of fastening from here through into this steel. So again, that's the project that I'm going to do, and anybody wants to join me can under the drop-in program, and we're just going to document basically the whole project as it goes along. All right, so here's where it gets tricky, and I have to make a decision. But this is a bunch of wood. This is ash that I cleaned up last night. This is for that bunk bed project that you may have been watching or not. It's the queen size bunk beds. I think I call the project the ash bunk beds. There's the post for that bunk bed. Those are all the triple lambs that I did earlier, and they're getting kind of ready. This is for a totally different project. That's cedar. So I don't want to tap into this stuff because I got to continue with the bunk beds, and that's for a client. Got to keep it moving. But I did end up having some extra boards from that. I did clean them up right away. And when I do that, when I clean them up to, typically on the hardwoods, I clean them up to 1 inch. So I run them through the planer just enough. I set my planer at 1 inch, not this dewalt, but I have the 3-blade dewalt, and it has a 1 inch setting on it, so that I can just set that to tent, and I'm good to go. So these are all 1 inch, so they're going to work for this project. I just by luck, this was kind of funny. Again, the camera gets a little crazy on me once in a while, but just by luck, look at that. I needed 56, and I have one at 56, so that's funny. This one's going to be, I think, too short. Yep, that's 54, but I'll have to look and see. I don't think we have any side rails out of wood. We're using the steel, but I could wrap one of the side rails just to keep everybody happy, like maybe wrap the top one and not the bottom one or something. This one here see what we got. 54, that's going to be too short. Again, then I have to be careful which ones are scrap and which ones are not. This one is 58, so I've got enough length there. And then again, I needed, we decided they were going to be 3 inches. And so what do I got here? I've got 3.5. So this guy's good to go. I can use that for an insider. This guy is 3.5, so I can use him. And I actually don't need those on the bunk bed project. And then again, this guy here, I think it's going to be too narrow. And that's too narrow. That could be an issue. We'll see. Might be able to play with that, because I was thinking of putting a rabbet in to hold a. I was thinking about putting a plywood floor on this firewood rack, and if I did that, I would rabbet the bottom. Well, if I rabbet the bottom instead of using a router to rabbet it, or a table saw, or however a lot of people do these things, you know, maybe a shaper, I can actually, with the triple lambs, you can just make one of the boards a little narrower. And so if you want a 3/8 or 3/4 inch rabbet, then actually all we need out of this is 2 1/4. And you can see how that would be really. Let's go ahead and figure that. We're going to do that. Again, some things we're not going to necessarily do them on the fly. We're going to think about them on the fly, but we may not do them on the fly. I'll still go back to the drawing, to the SketchUp drawing, and draw it, so that I can make sure there's no issues with anything else. Now this isn't going to be wide enough at all. So, okay, there's at least a start on our lumber. I have a storage unit where I have some hardwoods. What I might do is look and see, I might see if I have any cherry. I know I always have ash. I'm tired of using cedar. I could use cedar, but we have too much stuff around for that. I use that for some other stuff. It's not all that cheap. It's not cheap. So ash, we're finding that we can get for a pretty good price, and it's probably going to come down with this ash borer beetle thing. We're not sure, but I'll see what I've got in storage to basically start putting this together. And again, I have to keep in mind that on those triple lambs, that the outside pieces are not going to be. Let's see, they are going to be 56. So we'll just look and see what we need for lengths. Okay, so I was just looking at the lumber, and I thought I needed, a lot of 56s. And yeah, I do need some, but I only need 2 of them for each post. I don't need 3, because we're going to do the triple lamb. So that middle one, it only needs to be 42. Where is it? It only needs to be 42. And so I'll go back and look at my stack and see if I got some 42s, or enough to get a 42. I've got some 48. And I have some 40s that are coming up. Again, the best thing to do now at this point is print this, and then that way I can start writing notes on it, take it with me. Again, I could put it on my iPad, which I might do. We'll see how that goes. All right, so I'm going to go over to the storage unit in a little bit. So what I'm doing is I want to be able to have those dimensions with me. So I had sent this thing to myself via email. And now I have the file that came into me, and I'm going to use SketchUp Viewer for it. I clicked on save. I think it was save to SketchUp or open in SketchUp. So here now I have 2 things. I have the SketchUp file itself, which I can go ahead and I can, again, because I'm in Viewer, I cannot edit it, but I can move around in it. And I need to look at some things as far as, I think what I got to do, I got to play with it. There we can go. Okay, so I can use pan. This isn't a course on using it, but there. Now I can go ahead, and you have to do a lot more things manually in Viewer. I have to go down here, and now I can click Orbit, and then I can orbit, which is get a different angle on it. But now I have to go back to zoom, I think. Yep, zoom, and then shrink it down a little bit. Okay, so again, it's not the same as looking at it on a computer, but the thing is when I go over to my storage unit, I now have this with me, and then I can look at the whole thing and see what I need. Okay, so what I'm not seeing is the way to look at the the views that I created, the scenes, and I have to figure that out for an iPhone. It works on computers. I'm not sure about an Android, but I'm not able to do it on the iPad. So long story short, I now have my dimensions with me, and of course I can also go back and pull up the PDF that I saved of the same thing, but now I have everything with me, both either in the shop for my cut list, or I have it with me for my material list when I'm over at the storage unit, or if you're going to a lumber yard and they don't have what you need, you have to kind of look at, okay, well, could I get this instead? And again, the nice thing about having that SketchUp file is that if you want to look at some other stuff while you're out and about, or you want to show somebody what you're doing, this really comes in handy with a client. I've used it all the time with clients, and I have them download Viewer so that we can communicate and they can actually do 3D views of what it is that I'm building for them. So you got all those little options as long as you have the SketchUp Viewer.